Hello. Lately, I've been getting one query repeatedly. What was that query? It has been observed many times that the seventh house, the lord of the seventh house, and the significator are completely intact. And there are no specific afflictions, yet the marriage doesn't work out. Okay, we will check D9. We will go to the Vaga charts. The allegation is that there is no flexion in D1, and still so many problems are occurring. This cannot be known by any other method. There is no other formula that we can get and quickly assess what the quality and nature of our married life will be like. Today, we will talk about the indicators for one woman, focusing on what her married life will be like. We'll check. In astrology, Mars is the significator for the husband. So, from the association and placement of Mars, we can determine what a woman's married life will be like, or what her husband's background or life experiences might be. Let's get started. As I mentioned earlier, Mars is the significator for the husband. So the sign in which Mars is placed and the planets it is associated with will determine how your marriage will be. Today we are talking about women's married life. Just a note, guys. So the associations of the woman are not just limited to conjunctions. In fact, the way to look at these conjunctions and aspects is a bit different. We will also discuss that. So, the woman says that the association of Mars with any planet through conjunction and trine relationships is related to Mars. For example, if Mars is in Aries and is in conjunction with Mercury, and in its trine there are Jupiter and Saturn, and this sign falls in the ascendant. So, Jupiter is in the 5th house and Saturn is in the 9th house. So, the connection of Mars is bitrine, which is with Mercury, Jupiter, and Saturn. This trine connection is treated similarly to a conjunction. Then, the 2nd house also indicates something. The future of any planet is indicated by the 2nd house, while the 12th house shows the past. Now, the 2nd house is important. So without focusing too much on the past, we need to see which planet is sitting in the 2nd house. Sometimes it can become even more important than a trine. So our focus today will be on how the planets are positioned in the trine with Mars and how the planets in the 2nd house relate to Mars. This indicates how the life events of the husband will unfold and what his experiences will be like. For example, if Mars is behind the moon, it could mean that your husband travels a lot. And if Mars is in front of the moon, it indicates what experiences Mars will have in the future. I mean, what experiences your husband will have. Now, the sign is also equally important in women's astrology. So, Mars feels uncomfortable with the planets in the enemy camp who are Mars's enemies. Mars's enemies are Saturn, Mercury, and Rahu. This means that whenever Mars is in the sign of Mercury, whether in Gemini or Virgo, Mars feels uncomfortable by itself. But we cannot take the sign of Saturn because Mars is exalted in the sign of Saturn. So the sign of Mercury will be more challenging for Mars. Along with that, if Mars has associations with Saturn, Mercury, or Rahu, it indicates some kind of trouble or distress in the marriage. What is happening in your marriage regarding your husband's life because it does not provide you with what his position is supposed to provide? Now, it could be that there is such a combination in someone's chart, or you might think so. This combination of Mars in the drawing or in the 2nd house will last for a long time, or will be present in many people's charts, but they don't have any problems in their life. How do we get protection there? The first thing is energy utilization. What it is, I will explain to you further. Check if Mars is trine with Mercury or Rahu in D1, repeats in D9 showing Mars in trine with Mercury or Rahu in D1, And D9 shows problem severity. Degrees are crucial. If Mars's degree is higher, surpassing enemies, it suggests past issues and future improvement. These factors might reduce. If Mars's degree is higher and surpasses enemy planets, it shows past issues and future improvement. With these factors, you might face fewer problems. If Mars aligns with Mercury and Rahu, a lady might. So we can say that with these three factors, you might face fewer problems or not face them at all. What does energy utilization mean? If the theme of Mars is forming with Mercury and Rahu, how does that happen? I will explain it to you with one chart. It could also be that a lady is married to a foreigner or to someone who does not live in their own country, because Rahu indicates foreign connections. It could also be that the marriage happened through a friend, because Mercury represents friends and it happened through an online connection. But if Rahu is between Mercury and Mars, I would still advise them to be cautious, as there might be doubts or misunderstandings in your relationship, or your marriage could be with a guy who went abroad for education. This is called energy utilization. Now, these three planets do cause problems, but what kind of problems do they create? Saturn says that I can bring financial instability, health issues, and Rahu gives misunderstandings or a suspicious nature. Mercury brings duality, which means a husband who might be playful and good for dating, but not suitable for marriage, as he does not take responsibility. We understand the importance of degrees from this. We have the theme of Mars as it is. Mars 10, Saturn, Trina Mars, Venus 12, Saturn 14, Venus, theme Mars, Saturn, Venus lady, Mars husband. Saturn's position relative to Venus suggests a responsibility factor between Mars and Venus. Venus, so Venus lady by cell, and Mars is your husband. If Saturn is between Mars and Venus, then it clearly shows that there is a responsibility factor between you two. There are financial constraints that make it difficult for both of you to meet and enjoy life. There are so many responsibilities at home that we cannot even sit together and have evening tea. Either meeting both ends becomes so difficult for you that you don't even know what romance is. You both have no idea. Problems can be caused by Saturn, regardless of the fact that what is happening with the seventh house and its lord. On top of that, when Ketu is in the second house with Mars, it makes the situation even more challenging and problematic, creating a no relief situation. Relief is still available. If any planet is supporting this Mars by aspect, in astrology, any planet aspects another if it is in the 3rd, 7th, or 11th position from it. Now, let's say in this case, if Jupiter is in the 3rd house, or if the Sun is here, which are friends of Mars, then that creates a kind of saving grace. Aspect is also a kind of protection that should definitely be considered. Before saying this, I don't think there's anything left in your married life. Now, after talking about enemies, let's talk about friends. Look, these are Mars's friends with no benefits. These are friends, but they might face more problems with Rahu or Mercury. Mars with the moon can mean good finances, but also cheating. You might be cheated by the husband. If Mars is with the moon, it may indicate infidelity or limited time together. So there could be a probability of being cheated by the husband, or the husband might travel so much that you don't get a chance to spend time together. You shouldn't apply this rule directly. If there is protection in this, if that combination is not repeating in the D line, then one should think before calling someone a cheater. Now, Ketu is also in the same camp where Mars belongs. So, Ketu shouldn't be given problems. But Ketu also, because Ketu is a factor for strain or sudden disputes in relationships. If Ketu is also in a combination, like in this case where problematic planets were in Mars's trine, and now Ketu is coming into play, the situation on Mangal was now worse. If there were good planets, I might not be negative. If Mars and Ketu are positively aligned and Mars and Ketu's positive bond forms, Mangal Sutra Yoga ensuring marriage, Mars is in a good sign, and there's no other factor in their association that creates problems. So, in women's astrology, this combination is also referred to as the Mangal Sutra Yoga, which never lets a marriage break. Let's understand with an example chart. In this chart, you can see the impact of the sun on the seventh house. The sun is a friendly planet for the ascendant, but it is not a friendly planet for the seventh house. It matters a lot what kind of feeling any planet has for the Lanya before saying that it will create problems. So, from this perspective, I can say that your husband may have some problem with your family or your speed because you are emotionally very, very expressive. Because the sun is a very expressive outboard planet and it is in the exact same degree ascendant in Cancer. But if they are sitting and affecting the native, then they can give problems of emotional outbursts. But can I say there will be a lot of difficulties in marriage? The seventh house lord is in the sixth house, a challenging position. If I look at the lord of the seventh house, it is placed in the sixth house of the chart. The seventh house lord in Jupiter's sign causes dispute, but that corrupt person will give Jumna station disputes. But Jupiter works to bind relationships. He doesn't let go easily and doesn't allow the relationship to end. Both the sun and Jupiter are such planets. If they form a connection with any house or its lord, then what will matter is how society perceives it. For you, don't like to end relationships, even if you do it under societal pressure. Right? The significator is in the enemy sign, it is with the friendly Mercury, and it is also in the Rahu Ketu axis. So I understand that the significator Venus is a bit flipped. Venus is the significator for love, for women, and Jupiter is considered the significator of the husband in traditional astrology because Jupiter represents those who take on our responsibilities. If someone's Jupiter is badly afflicted in their chart, then there is no one in their life who takes on responsibilities. Now, if I consider the role of a woman, I look at what theme has been created by Mars. Behind Mars is Ketu. Ahead, he is meeting Mercury. Then he is meeting Saturn. And then Venus. Why did I mention Saturn first? Saturn's degree is lower than Venus. So, we read this theme degree-wise. First came Ketu, then Mars, then Mercury, then Saturn, then Venus. Now, even if I assume that Mars is in the sign of its friend and Ketu is in the same camp as the planet, but as we move forward, Mars is meeting Mercury, those whom Mars does not like at all. And Venus, which represents the lady herself, has Mercury coming in between them. What happened with them? And Saturn has also come into play. What happened in between is that her husband had an extramarital affair because Mercury represents friends. Your husband is meeting Mercury, then Saturn, and he is not able to meet you. So, while being in that extramarital affair, she cared about society and stayed in that relationship for many years and even had a child. But there is a limit to how much one can tolerate every situation. Finally, she decided to move on. When Mars is so afflicted, it also creates difficulties in finding happiness in a second marriage. Their second marriage is also facing problems. If I look at Mars in the second house, there is the moon, which is the significator of cheating. We talked about how the moon can be a friend, but can also indicate cheating. So, if Mars is related to Mercury and the moon, it indicates duality and cheating. If we also go in line there, Mars is related to Mercury and Rahu, where Venus is also getting afflicted, so I didn't get any protection from anywhere. And if I talk about aspects, there is an aspect of Rahu and Jupiter on this Mars, because we discussed that if any planet is sitting in the third, seventh, and 11th houses, it aspects that planet. It was Jupiter's saving grace that they had a child from that first marriage. She tried and was trapped in that relationship for 14 years. Next time, we will talk about what the combinations for love marriage are in Nadi astrology, but surprisingly, the woman is hand in hand with both of these combinations. If you share something, your production and your analysis will improve a lot. So next time, definitely analyze the D chart, the seventh house, the Lord of the seventh, and how Mars is positioned with them. Thank you so much.